A great set of presentations. I know I've learned a lot. My head is spinning a bit still. We typically end the day by having much more open question and answer period interaction amongst our panelists. And so that's what we'll do for the last half an hour or so, is try to facilitate that kind of a conversation. Though we also we've asked in the past and asked again this year to have John Heldens, who's our Assistant Vice Chancellor for Human Research Protections here at the University of Colorado Anschutz, to offer some comments. John oversees the IRBs and other activities, has more than 3 decades of experience in doing so. And so if you're willing to spend a few minutes with your reflections on the day, I think we'd love to hear them and then open for conversation.
I think this has been a fantastic day. I really appreciated all the talks today. It makes me reflect that I love my job. Some of these issues are just perennial. The constant tension between public health and individual privacy is raised. And that comes up in many studies. The tension between an IRB looking at a specific project, which are always necessarily oversimplified to answer a specific question in a specific time point. And a lot of the questions here raised today and observations raised today are answered after specific studies are done, and our system doesn't have a good way of figuring out how to engage communities in some of these long-term answers, and how to gather additional feedback from participants even beyond the specific study. But, I myself have a lot of experience using a wearable for a short period of time and just being disappointed and giving up. And I really like the idea that Dr. Hughes raised today about, just consolidating data in larger systems that don't exist today, but that would be useful to individuals and be more appealing and make multiple devices more useful and more appealing. So I'll just stop there for the moment, but that's what I was,
If I could just ask a follow-up question, when the IRB sees studies that involve wearables, is it any special attention, or one of the tensions I think that's been raised across the presentations is how unique are these? Are they really different? Are there different risks, or should we be balancing them different? Do you have any comments on the way the IRB looks at wearables?
I think we're very good at assessing privacy, and we're very good at solving the immediate privacy problems of making sure, I'll use the word sandbox, for example, that, the data are protected for the study, and they're not going to be, I can't think of an instance where a research participant was really harmed from a privacy issue. I think in the public, that's a different matter, but we're good with that. I myself have looked at studies thinking nobody's going to wear this device for a long period, and that's a little bit out of our purview. We might communicate that, and most of these studies, again, they're short term. It makes it easier for an IRB to review and approve, but wearing a device for a week, 3 weeks doesn't answer the question of whether they're going to still be wearing it for a year.
Dr. Hughes, I wonder if I could ask you to offer a few reflections or comments on what we've heard this afternoon and this morning, and any reflecting even on your initial presentation.
I was reflecting on this wastewater issue and how it relates to the kind of social change, data collection for social change that I was imagining. And what I would have always imagined was, well, wouldn't it be great if all of our toilets were telling us we had cancer or not, or something like that, as opposed to the more collectivist, as you say, it is literally collecting everything and putting it together and mixing it together. But in terms of the privacy element, I remember that when I was on an IRB at Trinity College, liberal arts college, so it was mostly behavioral research, but the only time I ever got in trouble was I approved a student project where she collected public records about voting, and she told all of the neighbors, well, your neighbors all voted, and you didn't vote last time, your neighbors all voted. There was public information, but I got in trouble because it was considered, they complained and it was considered a violation. I imagine there would be a similar kind of issue with wastewater management if you said, well, people in your block seem to be taking a lot of Prozac. What's up with that? Something like that. At any rate, my reflection is that I'm delighted to hear about all the different kinds of research that are happening in this domain, and it just gives me further confidence that we're probably moving in the right direction.
Do you mind following up on the comment or the question about community level labeling, stigma? Was that a prominent theme and as you developed the ethics framework, or you've been talking to communities about surveillance?
Yeah, certainly. And I'll first respond that I think 2.5 years ago at I think the major tech expo they do in Las Vegas, they did unveil a toilet-based device. So it's coming online. So if you want to meet between the sewer and the photographer, you will be able to assess what's in your own toilet bowl, which I don't have one of those myself. For the community level, while we were actually organizing the framework, was at the same time that Mpox was beginning to spread broadly in the United States. And so that was a major concern about how to balance the potential benefit from seeing early indicators of a communicable disease with something that had already been communicated on the lines of how the World Health Organization was kind of presenting the data with certain stigmas. And so then that really informed a lot of the consideration for how to be able to balance some of the rollout of these different surveillance networks. And one of the biggest thing is to realize that it's not just jumping from an RNA transcript to an RNA transcript, but there's a whole cultural context between some of these things. Like influenza is a far different type of monitoring than if you're monitoring for HIV within wastewater.
Yeah, great point.